Welcome to Inbound Buzz. My guest today is Lulu Godfrey. And guys, I am so excited. Lulu is a LinkedIn influencer. She has over 23,000 followers. Her clients, including yours truly, have generated hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of revenue. And she's the biggest extrovert you've ever met in your life. Lulu, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I say that obviously jokingly and in jest. And it's funny when you came on, when you came into the studio, we're talking about how it's actually funny, Lulu, like introverts make some of the best content creators. Like people don't realize some of the biggest creators are introverts. And I feel like this is your expression. So do you think that sort of helps you in the content? Like what would you say to someone who's like, oh, you have to be an extrovert to create content?
No, I think content's really good, especially on LinkedIn for introverts, because written word is very prevalent. Whereas, I mean, some people do use video, but it's kind of your choice if you use it or not. But written is like the main format that people use, and it's definitely the format that I feel most comfortable with.
So, by the way, like you see posts sometimes and people are like, oh, video is we can talk about content later, but you think text is still really important? Like, are you still finding a lot of results with text as opposed to other types of media on LinkedIn?
Yeah, text is definitely, text and image and, infographics and stuff are really helpful. But I think video is only really a media you should use if you're comfortable with it or if you want to be good at it. Because if it's not something you have time for or interested in learning and being good at, then I think it's more hassle than it's worth.
I like that. That is such a good point. If you want to and you can get good at it. Yeah, you're right. It does. Otherwise, why even doing it? It's too competitive. Let's start really high level. Talk to us about the importance of building a personal brand on LinkedIn for business growth, or I guess, for any type of growth.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is just the best platform, but I'm pretty biased. There's so many aspects that make it great. Firstly, there's like the intent. So people going on LinkedIn, they're usually looking to learn, like find a job or sell services, and like learn from other people in the industry. So you're not going on LinkedIn to like doom scroll or leave like nasty comments like on Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah, you're right? Like you are in LinkedIn, and almost as you're talking, I'm like, you are stepping in with a blazer or a blouse as opposed to like a t-shirt, like you're in that mind frame.
Yeah, it's definitely like a different, I spend a lot of time scrolling on LinkedIn, but I think a lot of people, you're only going on for like 5-10 minutes at a time. So you need to have the good content that kind of speaks to people that want to learn something or they're looking for something specific. I think LinkedIn is a good platform to build a personal brand on because you can easily see and make assumptions about the people that are viewing your content or following along. You can easily see where they're from, what they've been doing in their career and what their current job titles are. If they're a founder, if they're high up, if they're kind of entry level, it really helps you make decisions on the action to take when you reach out to someone or
when you're creating content, that type of thing. And a question for you. So, I think it's pretty obvious, like, it should be obvious, like LinkedIn is not, it used to be just a place if you're looking for a job, right? Like I think most people understand it's a lot more than that. And I'd love to share my story working with you as well. But I do have a question for you, like in terms of, so B2B, it's pretty obvious, right? B2B, it's the place to be. What about B2C? Like is it still, like I used to say, and I could be wrong, might have changed that it's not really the place for B2C, or do you think that's changing, or what's your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on what the like product or what you're selling is, because there's a few people that have kind of B2C products that are for people on LinkedIn. So more targeted towards like entrepreneurs or founders or even marketers. Yeah, no, it really depends on the audience. And if you have a product that's built for people that are on LinkedIn, like marketers, founders, or even like directors, then it's a really good place to be. I know there's a few people that have products, but I don't know if you've seen like Niall Cleaver. He hasn't actually launched his product yet, but he is like making a coffee cup, but it's for like it's more like a luxury brand
Right.
for like founders and kind of people in like that are building businesses. And there's also a girl called Katie, and she has like a cup business, and she's like documenting the behind the scenes of like rebranding and rebuilding her business. And I think it's really interesting, though I'm not sure if they've had good results or not, but they have lots of followers.
When you think about it, it does make sense. Like, as you're sort of saying that, like, if your audience is there, if you, for example, product for entrepreneurs or product for marketers, whatever. But when you think about it, like, say even like Qantas, say even, Rode mics, like Apple, right? Like, if you're a leader, because it is, this better than everyone, it's a person-to-person network. So you're still representing the brand. You're still building your personal brand. And it's such a good place to think about that, and talk about that stuff. And just briefly, I'll sort of say, like, as people ask me, so full disclaimer, Lulu, you're my ghostwriter. You do my, and I find that for me personally, I love your thoughts on this. Like, what works best is I put some content out, and you put some content out. And even those weeks when I'm super super busy, there's stuff going out, and you can obviously tell whose content is who, because your level is always better than my level. But I think most people can't really tell. Like, they really sort of struggle to tell. Actually, let me start with that. Like, what's your take on that? Like, when you're working with a client, like, do you find it's easier if they're already creating content, or it's better if they haven't done any content in the past?
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely easier if they've created content. Firstly, because you already kind of have a tone of voice and style to follow, and everyone has those specific words they use and little phrases. So that's really helpful for like getting started and kind of getting that first iteration of content kind of there. Like, it always takes a little bit of time to like finalize, but you always want something that's close enough to the finished product.
Right. So I guess if they're creating some content, even if it's a little bit, you're able to sort of see, like, okay, cool, I can see what that person's trying to do. I can see their tone and style. Like, there's probably big mistakes in terms of like maybe too many or lack of paragraphs or whatever, but I can see that helping you. So from my point of view, like, because I was doing content for a really long time, and one of our biggest clients ever, Bupa, well over 6-figure client, I got from posting something on LinkedIn. And I'm sure you've heard billions of these stories before, Lulu, but like, that the person who reached out to me, when they reached out to me, I didn't even look at their, like, it was a DM, and I didn't even bother checking where they were from. And they're like, oh, hey, we'd be interested in talking to you about HubSpot. And I'm like, yeah, cool, no worries. Here's my email address. I was like really laissez-faire about it. Or my meeting link. I just, sent it. And then like the day later or something, I checked. I'm like, oh my God, that person's from Bupa. Like, was I like too casual? But it was probably better I was casual, because I was more myself. And they ended up, 6-figure contracts with Red Pandas. That person had never liked my stuff, wasn't a connection, had never commented. And out of nowhere, it was one of the quickest sales that I ever had. So I know this works. I know it worked. And I was doing it for years before we started working together. And people ask me, like, maybe, why did you do that? And the reason for that is, like, one, I know it works. But two, and I'd love for you to talk about this, right, is like, I'm talking about it as just a person, whereas I feel like what you specialize in, you are trying to position them as a thought leader, specifically in the services they're trying to sell. At the end of the day, it's money, right? Like revenue. And you're able to craft angles that are, I felt like, if I say it simply, I felt like I was friend zoning my content, right? Whereas you helped me, like, take it from a friend zone level to like business relationships. But talk to that. I know you love talking about it. You actually don't, but talk to us about that. If you can park humility aside, like, how do you actually, what's the value you give clients? Like, for example, like myself, who struggle with content that's just kind of airy-fairy. How do you get them to really hone in?
Yeah, I think it's one of the best things about having a ghostwriter is they have that objective view of you. And it's just something that I struggle with in my own content, because I'm too close to all my thoughts and my ideas. But actually, since I hired my first content writer about 6 months ago, Ellie, and since hiring her, it's been really good, because now I have someone to bounce my ideas off, and you can talk about the ideas and get out of your own head. So I think having a ghostwriter is really good because, you know, you can have those conversations and it's someone looking at everything that you've done, everything you're putting out already, and kind of refining it and making it digestible for the set target audience that they're looking to attract.
I guess what I noticed when I started working with you, you sent me like this mammoth brief, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is like a mammoth brief. But I respected it. I could tell why you were doing it because like you were so good in just sort of extracting out the stuff out of me. And like I knew it was very valuable, and I think the work and the results speak for itself. In that process, like what are you trying to do? Like if you can cast your mind to when you work with me or new clients, like when you're sending them those briefs, like as the strategist, if you want to call yourself that, what are you trying to figure out to help your strategy and content calendar?
Yeah, it's just trying to kind of get a holistic view of everything, like who you're targeting, you know, a bit about your story, and social proof is definitely important as well. And once you have all of those pieces, you can pick out the bits that's going to form like the core story and the bits that are going to resonate with the target audience and kind of crafting it into that story.
Yeah, got you. For someone who is like, okay, cool, I want to start, but I don't know where, what would be like, and I know this could be like an hour answer or 2 minutes, but like, what's like a dot point strategy, or what's advice you'd give to someone who don't know where to start with when it comes to LinkedIn and their content?
Yeah, I like to split LinkedIn into kind of 2 halves because when I started, I only did this first point and not the second point. So the first one is attention and the second is conversion. So attention is going to be your content, you know, anything you put out, you know, that will have its own strategy. You're going to have the different types of content. And then conversion is going to be, you know, how you turn that into leads or sales. And I think everyone gets focused on the content, but
the conversion stuff, they focus on that more, are you saying?
I think I used to just focus on just putting out content.
Right.
But then I realized that I was kind of missing people because you do get inbound leads, but, you know, it can kind of vary from month to month. You know, people might not be, you know, you might just not happen to get in front of someone that's looking, or someone just, because you're nurturing like a lot of people all at once, you just might have a bit where, you know, a few weeks where you don't get a lead. So having conversion tactics in place is really helpful. For me, I tend to do just warm outreach. So going through my profile every day after I post, looking at who sent me a connection request, who sent me a profile, who's viewed my profile, who's followed me and who's engaged, and kind of picking out people that I think would be like a good candidate and just sending them a simple message. I like to use like an either or question. So just giving them a little option to kind of step forward as a lead. So like,
this is good. This is gold, by the way. I'm actually really excited about this. So I want to go back to summarize some of that. So the or, what would that look like? So for example, so I love this, right? So this more for my brain. You're like, okay, you see who's connected, who's engaged, who's followed you. What else did you say? Engaged, connected, followed.
Profile views.
Profile views.
They're always the best ones.
And then so that's a great first step.
Yeah.
We're talking about conversion now, right? Like leads and stuff. So you do that. And to be honest, I don't do enough of this as you probably know. So it's great advice for me. Then you look at, okay, who of these could be a good fit?
Yeah.
And then you said, like, if we break that down to like step 3 is like some sort of statement, or because you're not like, because the thing everyone hates, right? And you're not talking about this, is like, hey, you know, do you want to buy from me? Yeah. Right? Like, that's useless. So give us an example of like a light sort of first touch type of outreach.
So back in January, I released like a lead magnet. So easily you're going to get a list of people that have downloaded it. And it's just, for example, going through and saying, oh, you know, thank you for downloading it. Is there anything else I can help with? Or did the resource clarify everything for you? So just giving them like an either or, and it's really simple for them to answer, and it doesn't come across super salesy. It just comes across from a place of like wanting to help. And that's what you are trying to do. But from that, you do get some leads that will just step forward and say, oh, it clarified it for me, but I want you to do it.
Does that strategy still works? Like, say, you don't have like a lead magnet, or it's been, a while since you've put out a lead magnet. Could you still do that if someone just engaged on content?
Yeah. So it depends on, which of those categories they fall into. So for like a profile view, I usually ask them if they're like being nosy or if they're like looking for...
Like literally like, hey, are you being nosy?
Like I usually say, hey, are you looking for some more information on my profile, or are you just checking it out? And like with connection requests, I usually go down the like networking route. Like, are you looking to like set up like a networking call, or are you just, is it like, what's the reason why you're connecting with me?
Yeah, okay. All right. So like, for example, someone reached out to me, I could be like, hey, you're looking to set up like a networking call, or you were just interested in what I do?
Yeah.
Would that be an okay one?
And then I usually will have a look at their profile and see if there's anything that stands out at the same time, just to kind of create like a more casual conversation. Could be anything from like the thing they just posted, or if they've launched a new offer, you can just kind of bring that into the conversation. So it's like, imagine you're at like a networking event.
Yeah.
You're not just going to go up to someone and ask like, do you want to buy my thing?
So you know what I love about this? What I love about this. So like, you're a self-confessed introvert. And like, guys, if Lulu can do this, you guys can do this, man. Like she's like, by the way, you're crushing it. Thank you so much. She's probably hiding it well, but she's nervous. But if someone like Lulu can do this and reach out and have these like low-fi, low-touch kind of connections, I think no one has an excuse.
Yeah. I was making my own excuses for the longest time. So when I started posting on LinkedIn, for the first 6 months, all I did was post content, and I would only do networking from like a peer-to-peer view and never reach out to potential clients or prospects. And it took me to pay to go into someone's cohort that was about offer creation, sales, and like, getting clients through social media. That's when I started doing the outreach. Before then, I just relied on content. And as soon as I started doing outreach, so I got like, in comparison, you start getting so many more sales calls, and then you're getting the conversion. And also you're not placing as much weight on each lead, because at first I would get leads, and because you're just waiting for leads to come in, if you get the leads and you get on a call, then you're just kind of waiting for them to convert. Whereas if you have like lots of little conversations going, even if they say no, it doesn't matter, because you have like lots of conversations.
Yeah, that's right. And it probably comes across, I noticed that with myself, like if I've got a month where I have so many leads and such a pipeline, I think the key thing is like, having that momentum, like always make sure you got that next step, always book that next step. I talk about BAM fam a lot, like book a meeting from a meeting. I think all those principles apply whether you're busy or not busy. But like you say, like there's just a different energy when you're dealing with so many. You're not desperate. It doesn't come across as desperate. And final thing on this, because I'm sure people would be curious, like if someone does that stuff apply, like say they're engaging with your content, is it still like an all type of statement? Like, hey, I hope you found that useful. Hopefully that made sense. Can you give a last example on that? If someone's just, because you said it might be different if compared to profile views versus download versus engagement on a post. So
I like to kind of gauge the type of intent. Usually connection requests are the highest because they already kind of want to be in your network. So you don't know if they want to be in your network for the sake of it or because they actually want something. And then engagement is usually the lowest type of intent. So I wouldn't go into something, if they just like your post, it's not going to be as high intent. So you need to be kind of subtle. But if they leave a comment that kind of hints at something, then you've got a bigger chance there. So I always start with the profile views and connection requests. And if I have time, I'll go through the people that have engaged, because sometimes it takes like 15 minutes to go through everything and then say, a post does way better than you expected, then you suddenly might have like 100 people to message, and that's too many. But you need to be selective with, you know, who you're messaging to save time.
Could an idea be if someone's their right ICP, then your ideal customer profile, they've engaged on something that might be commercially relevant, like it's like a HubSpot post as opposed to me with my kids somewhere.
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, you know, saw you liked it, glad you found that useful. Here's another resource you might find useful. That would be...
Yeah, that's also really helpful, you know, because it's all about building trust with them. So however you're going to do that. I usually do that, like if I'm super busy or I've got a lot on, I'll have kind of a set template that I'll like customize, and it will have a resource or like a link to like my newsletter or something where you know that you're going to keep having those touch points.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Especially like if it's a LinkedIn newsletter too, right? That'd be a good idea as well.
Yeah, like at the moment...
Keep them on the same ecosystem.
At the moment, I've got my like out of office on because I'm on holiday, and I've got like a link to a couple resources, you know, saying like, I can't reply right now, but if you need anything, you know, you can check these out.
As you're out of office.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that's pretty cool. What are your thoughts honest thoughts, you can be as brutal or as nice as you want, on AI and LinkedIn?
I mean, I use AI for my own content, so I can't, I can't bash it. But I think a lot of people using it make it too obvious. And I just
say the M dash thing?
Yeah.
I freaking love M dashes. I've been using them like, and you know, on your keyboard, if you write a word, put a dash, and then you write a word, it like automatically extends it. If it doesn't extend it, because I didn't do that, I will make it extend.
Yeah.
I hate the hate on M dashes because I'm like, I freaking love them, but I feel like AI has ruined them. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah. So like you're saying, don't make it obvious. What are some? How can people avoid that to make it obvious, not obvious?
I mean, for me, it's kind of easier because I've already put out so much content. So I have a like custom GPT that has literally everything I've ever written in it. So it kind of can draw on my style, the way I use punctuation. And it doesn't always get it 100%.
Of course, yeah.
But you need to edit it. But I think a lot of people just put in a prompt, and it even might be into a custom GPT, because I know there's loads from all the lead magnet posts on LinkedIn. But I think
just copy those,
Yeah, I think it's really obvious when it's just copied, because you have, I don't know what it's called, but you know, it's not this, it's this. It's like a really common AI trope. And it's one that humans use commonly, but it's just AI will overdo it. So I think it's always good. What I tend to do is I write out in my notebook like a general gist of the post, and then I use AI like from that to then expand on it, because if you have already like the words and phrases that you would use when you're having a conversation, it's much better. And I feel like quite a distinct writing style myself. Like I don't really like M dashes for my own writing. I use like little hyphens or like the colon bracket for smiley faces.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
So having just like those little quirks, you could have a post that's written with AI and you could just add in a few little finishing touches 100%. And little quirks, and even maybe a typo. And then, you know, it feels more human, because the thing that people don't like when they see AI posts is more of a trust thing. So it's not that you're using AI, it's that you're kind of ruining the trust, because it doesn't feel like they're looking at content from another person.
Some people are so against it, Lulu, like so against it. I remember having this like a low-key debate with a Karen. She's like, AI, da-da-da. And I'm like, well, if it's not about AI, yes or no. It's like you say, like using it properly, training it on your tone of voice, like using it for idea generation, getting it close and tweaking. But some people just won't have any of it. What about like post, like bit of a tactical, and I know it's difficult because you got carousels and whatnot. Like what are some tips you can give on structuring a post from a hook to how you sort of, you know, structure the rest of that post?
Hooks, I think it's always good to create curiosity. It's like the opening the loop. Some people do it really obviously, and
What's that bad one? My biggest bugbear is the one that's like controversial post or unpopular opinion. Like, leave me alone, man. Unpopular opinion, which you never do, by the way. Like, your stuff is always like never cliche.
Yeah, no, it can be difficult, but a good way that some people do it is maybe like asking like a slight question or leaving it on a bit of like a cliffhanger. So saying like, this is something that I've done, but like not saying what this is. So it's kind of leading with the result they have, and then you have to click on the see more to find out what it is that they...
With like, what about hashtags? Do you think hashtags... I don't use them, and I don't think you use them on my post as well. Like, because I feel like the algorithms are smarter than that. Like, do you think there's any... Or maybe you do, I can't remember, but
yeah. No, I felt, well, no one like completely knows what the algorithm is. Like, no one even at LinkedIn knows what it is. But there's kind of rumors that it's just smart enough to know what you're posting about.
Right, yeah.
But I do have a client in the like engineering sector, because Western Australia is just all heavy industry. And I do use hashtags in their content only because I feel like that kind of industry on LinkedIn is a couple years behind what the marketing sector is like, because marketers, we all use LinkedIn, it seems. So it's kind of, I don't want to say it, but I feel like hashtags can be a bit icky.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like a boomer doing it.
Yeah. So whereas in the kind of engineering industry, there's not as much good content. So having the hashtags can help you like be discovered because not as many people are like engaging.
Right. Got
and
you.
I feel like it's kind of helped there. But if I see hashtags in like marketing, I'm like, oh, I don't know.
You just started. You just got to the party. So, okay. So a good hook that kind of leaves people, builds some curiosity. Give us a couple. I'll share an obvious one. Like no long paragraphs, right? And what else would you say?
Yeah, I think it's good to have variation because when people say like do bullet points, you can take it too far and then it's just all very, very short. Whereas I like to have variation. So you might have one small paragraph that's like 3 lines, but you'll also have the really short bullet points, and it's just kind of creating a bit of interest throughout the post and making it more casual. Like easy to digest for people.
Cool. So let's talk about if you are using a ghostwriter, what's the best way to utilize? Like, what makes your job really easy? Because I think it's like working with a ghostwriter is like any professional relationship, right? Like if both parties are bringing things to the table, the output's going to be really good. If someone's like, yeah, just be my ghostwriter, and by the way, like we're not suggesting you should only use a ghostwriter if you've done content. People want to use a ghostwriter because they don't do a lot of content, but if you give them nothing, it's going to be difficult, right? So talk to me like how to best utilize a ghostwriter, and I'd love for you to share examples of maybe how we worked well together, what's sort of helped you. Also selfishly, because I'll try to keep doing that, but yeah, talk to us about how to do that.
So as you know, I send out a giant questionnaire. I don't know how many pages it is, but it's quite a few. I think it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I always give the option to, answer it on a call or fill it out yourself. But that gives me a really good baseline of kind of creating the strategy and picking out the like main storylines that we want to go with.
I will say, if you don't mind me interrupting, one thing I remember, even to this day, because it was late last year, that when I was doing the questionnaire, what I was really impressed by, I could tell that you were trying to figure out, okay, well, what is your angle? Like, what are you going to focus on? Because I think for the longest time, I was like, I talk about SEO and then AI and then paid media and then like digital marketing is really broad. And doing that, like you made me really focus. And I remember at the end of that, I got the sense of, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on HubSpot and paid media. And yeah, some periphery stuff, but like those 2 things are going to be the key things I'm going to focus on. And you do that by design, I think.
Yeah. No, it's really important that you have a focus. Otherwise, you kind of end up just not really having a direction, and people that are coming to you and seeing your content, they're going to be confused because
what are you going to be known for?
Yeah, people, when you're thinking about your own content and like what you stand for, it's really complex. But when someone else is looking at your profile and your content, they don't really care.
It needs to be simple.
Yeah, you've got like, you know, if you show up on someone's feed, you've got like a few seconds maybe to bring them in. And if they go onto your profile, everyone's just like checking things out and you're scrolling around. So if it's not obvious what you do, then they're not going to know if you can help them or if they're, you know, if you're going to be someone they can learn from.
Cool. So sorry, no, I interrupt you. So, okay, what else, how else to best utilize what are the really good ingredients for you to get the most out of a client and the content?
Yeah, definitely collaboration. It's like one of my values. But I think just being open, it's like knowing that ghostwriting isn't like a one and done thing. I do obviously have the big questionnaire to try and get like a big chunk of that over and done with first. Because if you're, you know, naturally over time, I think people are busy, there's busy periods, and it can be easy to forget or maybe not have time to go into as much detail. But knowing and like constantly keeping up with clients is really important, whether that's like a few clients, I check in with them every 2 weeks for 10 minutes and they just go over, you know, what have you been doing? You know, it's really helpful just to catch up and see what they've been working on. And, you know, you can do that async or you can do it on calls. It just depends on the client. I think having a bit of flexibility has been really helpful because every client is different and every client has different ways of communicating best and like opening up that collaboration.
What's helped you with my content? Like, because we have a blog and I've noticed, which I really love, like you'll take things from like the blog. Obviously we've got this podcast. What's helped you specifically? And the point of the question is like to help give other people ideas too, and hopefully see that, hey, like there is a synergy that happens when you do create other types of content. Yeah.
Having a bank of content to work from is always really helpful because it can help you identify more of those like key themes that you want to stick with and helping things, you know, be cohesive across your like content strategy, because it's not just about LinkedIn. For me, it mainly is, but for a lot of clients and businesses, there is other things going on. And if you're looking kind of at that multi-touch point strategy where you're building trust across platforms, having similar messages is really helpful because
yeah, it makes it consistent. Yeah, so you still use that initial brief to like, okay, cool, these are the, I don't want to say boxes, but the pillars I want to fit you into, Mr. or Miss Client. And then if they are creating other content, you look at it in the lens of the, you know, what you want to be known for. Okay. I mean, I could talk to you all day about LinkedIn, but I guess on the LinkedIn profile side, is there a couple of like maybe 3 or 4 tips? Because you touched on this before, right? And I love this. When people go to your profile, like it needs to be very clear for them what you're good at. And that helps you like siphon in. And I think, for example, and a lot of it's not just digital marketing, but there's a lot of industries out there and a lot of people where in that industry, you might do a lot. Like Red Pandas will do a lot. We'll do SEO, we'll do content, we'll do LinkedIn. So you do our LinkedIn. We do lead gen, paid media. Like, but you can't be known for everything. You know what I mean? So you've got to, So I guess give us like 3 or 4 points or tips or considerations that people should think about in terms of LinkedIn being a conversion element to convert people who look on their page for sales. Yeah.
It's going to sound really basic.
And often the best advice is,
The first one is definitely getting a good profile picture, because it's for more established people on LinkedIn, they all got really good profile pictures. But when I kind of talk to prospects or leads, it's often one of the things that is kind of lacking a little bit. you know, it might be outdated or from a screenshot of a random selfie. Actually, the engineering client that I worked with, maybe 2 weeks ago, I went in because they're local and I did a photo shoot with everyone in the office to get like new headshots for them, because, you know, they're going to conferences and using headshots from 15 years ago.
Yeah, or like when they got married,
yeah,
or from high school or university, or
yeah. So it's just kind of like, it doesn't have to be super formal. Just make sure that it's clear and like within the last few years. I feel like it's pretty underrated because that's one of the first things that people see. So you've got to be building trust. And if you don't have, you know, you haven't put the effort into just making yourself kind of look presentable, then it's not saying.
And like, authentic too.
Yeah.
Authentic, unique. Like, don't catfish your audience. Last couple of years, there's some stuff you see like, man, even I can tell like that was done 20 years ago. Yeah. Okay, cool. So photo, what else? What other sort of tips would you give for the profile?
I think having resources available is really important.
In the link.
Yeah. And if you don't have resources, having a call link, or I prefer having a questionnaire, lead form, just because it like weeds out all of the the kind of spammy call requests. But yeah, having resources or a link to a newsletter, just something where you can kind of, you know, follow up with people or like nurture them a little bit more. And I also think it's really important to have the recommendations. I feel like it's something that a lot of people kind of overlook.
Remind me, what are the recommendations?
So right at the bottom of your profile page, it's kind of like reviews.
Oh, yeah. From your connections or people, who know you. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe every 6 months or a year, because people are busy. And I feel like it's something that we all forget about, just to kind of send out a message. It could be to a client, or you can also have people that you used to work with, like colleagues or previous bosses. Just having some sort of, you know, review from another real person, again, is going to build up some trust.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so reviews, the recommendations, the photos, have some sort of call to action. What about the title? Like, I've gone through so many times, and every time I change it, I think I'm a genius. I'm like, oh, this is the best one. This is the best one. What are your thoughts on that? And while you think about that, I'm going to bring up mine. Then I'm going to get you to roast it and tell me your honest... You've probably seen it already, but like honest first thoughts. But talk to us about the title. And we're talking about the one where it's next to your name. So when you post... Sorry, it's under your name. You've got your name, and then it'll have like a byline or whatever.
Yeah. No, they're really important, because I guess it's the second thing that people see after your profile picture and your name. So it's definitely a tricky one to get right. I know when I started, I just went for the really basic, like, I help this type of person to get this result.
Yeah, cool.
Using
problem outcome based. Yeah.
But then I feel like it kind of got overdone, and everyone had those. So I really like kind of results focused ones, and ones that just say really simply what you actually do. Because again,
that's,
you know,
right. Not
gotta
like
make it simple.
Trailblazer or Evangelist or some crap like that.
Yeah. No, there's so many of those. Or the ones that are like in all capital letters with like a rocket emoji.
Yeah.
It just is so gross.
There's some really wanky ones, man. There's like, you know, futurist and technology. Like, oh, give me a break. All right, you ready to roast mine? Like, like brutal, right? Okay. So mine is Moby Sadiq, and underneath it is 3x your leads, and become your industry's authority with HubSpot, paid media and digital marketing. And then I've got the vertical pipe bar, CEO Red Pandas. So 3x your leads and become your industry's authority with HubSpot, paid media and digital marketing, CEO Red Pandas Digital. Yeah,
no, it's good because, you know, you kind of have like a promise, and then you have what you do, and then who you are. It's like, normally when I work with clients, I will usually go through and kind of tweak or add things, but it's like good as it is.
Cool. All right, awesome. That's good. That's good. I'm learning something. All right, awesome. Okay, so I'll last few questions. Talk to us like how often. This is funny. This comes up every so often, and this question will never die on any medium. But like, how often should LinkedIn posts be published? How often should you be publishing? Yeah. And maybe think about a beginner in mind.
Yeah, for a beginner, I usually recommend 2 to 3 times. I think 2 is always like 2 to 3 times a week. I think 2 times is good because you're getting in enough practice that you're going to get a little bit of feedback. Whereas if you only post once a month, there's going to be such a big gap in between that it's not going to be kind of accurate on, you know, what's working.
It's like going to the gym, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to really improve.
Yeah. But I think if you're busy, it can be really hard to do like the post 5 or 6 times a week, which a lot of people say you need to do. But saying that, that's what I did. When I started, I was posting every day. But that's because I knew that it was a skill that I wanted to develop quickly because I was working in just like a random admin job and I didn't want to work there anymore. So I was working really hard to, you know, sign some clients and change up what I was doing. But I definitely think 2 to 3 times a week is good because you're going to create a bit of a habit. And I recommend having like set posting days and to time block in your calendar. So I time block time for creation and also for like interaction and like community building. So it could be the community building, like doing some networking on LinkedIn, but I also, you know, have the warm outreach like fall under that.
Honestly, Lulu, I know like it probably like so simple for you, but even hearing that myself, and I've been doing LinkedIn for years, it's actually really simple, great advice because you're saying time block, but have separate time blocks for ideation, for creation, and then outreach and engagement. Like, and when you say it out loud, it's such common sense. I feel like the issue I've tried to do it all in one block, and that doesn't work, especially like the engagement part. And then you don't do it because you do the easy thing. Yeah. You won't do the hard thing and reach out. Cool. I also talk to us like, how do you keep like, you know, like personally, like how do you keep learning, evolving? How do you stay ahead of the trends? Because like algorithms move so fast. How do you maintain your expertise?
Yeah, there's lots of things that I do and have done. One of them that I've recently got into is podcasts. I never really used to be a podcast person, but then there was a few people that, you know, like Lara Acosta and Matt Lackerhave, I'm gonna say.
I think I know that person.
Yeah. So he's like the sales guy in Australia, and in Australia he's like the #1 lead gen guy. But he went on a podcast a few months ago and I found that super interesting because you get a lot more nuance than you would get on the platform because there's loads of people on LinkedIn talking about LinkedIn, but in a short post there's only so much detail and you can't, the way that posts are formatted is to get like quick wins, whereas if you want something more in depth you're gonna have to seek out something a bit longer, and being able to hear kind of a bit about their stories as well is really interesting, and like the reasons why that they do the things that they do, and it helps kind of reinforce what might be helpful for you. I've also been part of quite a few cohorts and like courses, like buying from, you know, like I've done like Matt Barker's course, so he does ghostwriting as well, and it's just really interesting learning from other people in the industry, because everyone has slightly different methods and techniques and frameworks that they use, and it's kind of finding what works for you. Like, not everything that, say, Matt Barker, not everything that he put in his course is necessarily something I agree with, but then getting his perspective and insight really helps you, you know, because you're coming at it from more of an analytical way, and like testing things out, I think is really helpful. I also started kind of seeing everything as an experiment. So what would happen if I tried this, rather than before I was very attached to the outcome. And I had a client who was a coach, a mindset coach, and I was kind of just talking about, you know, how I viewed my content. This was probably like a year and a half ago. And he just said, what would happen if? And like, just detach yourself from the outcome. Like, you're not looking to get this kind of result. Just play around and see what happens. And I think that really helped me to learn more, because I kind of took myself out of the little box that I'd put myself in.
Nice. Love that. And final question, like, and so before I ask you this question, we will share in the show notes your details, maybe a lead magnet that you recommend as well. But what's a question I haven't asked you that maybe I should have?
I was trying to think about this before.
I stole that, by the way. I saw a guest ask me that, and I was like, oh, that's very clever. Maybe it's not really smart. So I'm asking you that. I guess either a question I haven't asked you or final thoughts or comments.
I think one of the biggest things like I've struggled with in general is like I'm a huge introvert. So that's why I started posting on LinkedIn, because obviously it's a text-based platform. But when I first started, I was super shy. I mean, I still am. But even the thought of getting on a Zoom call with someone was like so anxiety-inducing. I used to do breathing techniques. I used to use CBD oil and do meditation. And I would still like stumble over every single word. So kind
Take
of...
a shot. I'm joking. Okay.
And like every time I do a Zoom call, it's kind of putting yourself out there on purpose, out of your comfort zone. I used to have like my mum loves like Ant Middleton, and I think his phrase is like, feel the fear and do it anyway. So that's something that I really tried to do, and like keep doing things that scared me. So like the Zoom calls was the first one. Like going to networking events. I've only been to 2 because they were so scary. And I think it's been like a year since I've done something really scary. And you asked me to be on the podcast, and I kind of thought about it for like 5 days.
Then you jumped into it. I'm so glad you did. And if I can just, apart from the content, which is like super helpful, super useful, and we'll link everything in the show notes, episode, I think it's 183, redpandas.com.au/EP183. We'll have Lulu's contact details there, like maybe a link to a lead magnet. That would be helpful. But like, apart from the obvious stuff, even for me, Lulu, this is super inspiring. Like, I'm someone who's an extrovert. People ask me to MC at weddings, I go on stage. But even listening to you, I'm like, you know what? Like, making the ask, I don't do that part enough. I talk about making the ask all the time, and I put content out. But and like sitting here and seeing you, it's so inspirational for me. You're putting yourself out there, doing a podcast that's not natural for you. I'm like, if Lulu can do that, I can spend an hour a week at least and just reach out to a bunch of people and say, hey, like, did you find that interesting? Did you have any more questions? Thanks for stopping by, just something. So Lulu, thank you so much. It's been super useful. And next time you're in Sydney, we'd love to have you on again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Inbound Buzz. Learn anything? Return the favor by spreading the word. Want to make your mark in digital? Need help with your digital strategy, inbound, and marketing automation efforts? Then visit redpandas.com.au and be sure to tune in next time for another Inbound Buzz hit.